Welcome everybody to Odd Rhythm Fantasy Sports. This is our College Spotlight edition. We are actually covering Colorado State's Rams um, tight end Dallin Hooker. So Eli, take us away.
Well, maybe he was a hooker in his past life. I think it's Dallin Holker, but tomato. It don't matter. This guy, he's rising up draft boards. He started. Nobody heard of him. I mean, unless you were a BYU fan, last year or his first go around in 2018 at BYU, like you hadn't heard of this guy before, and you see that Colorado game, which was one of, if you'd believe it, a Colorado State game was one of the biggest ratings of the year. With that's back when Dion and those guys were ranked, and Colorado was the big story. Well, this guy tore him up. I remember looking at, I'm like, who's this big stud tight end? Oh snap, Dallin Holker. So before the year, he was, or like September, he was like the 923rd ranked player, like on Draft Buzz. So like he had no draft buzz. I mean, he was a nobody, and he has risen up where he was gonna be a guy that probably was gonna give up football. He's probably gonna be go back to Utah where he's from, sell insurance. Okay, to a undrafted free agent. Now he's projected to possibly go in the 5th round. And look at Isaiah Likely. Isaiah Likely is a stud that's filling in for Mark Andrews with Baltimore, about to be the starting tight end for the rest of the year for the Baltimore damn Ravens. He was a 5th round pick. So Donovan, he was on my championship college football squad, baby. Yeah, no, I get it, man. 737 yards for a tight end in college. I mean, that's damn good. I mean, Jay's probably going to bring up his exact ranking when he has his graphic up, but just exactly what Holker's doing. But overall, draft buzz as of end of November, as of this past week, he's the 153rd ranked player, the 7th ranked tight end, and like I was saying, but he's projected anywhere from the 5th to an undrafted free agent. And the way he's rising up boards, I'd lean more towards the 5th round. And they have Seattle and Chicago possibly being suitors. And Seattle would make sense. I mean, they're going to I don't know what the hell happened to Will Dissly. I don't know if he's hurt or what, but Noah Fant, he's decent. But Seattle loves cheap labor. Just saying. They could use a big stud tight end like this. He could take over Will Dissly's spot. I think that would be and the comp I found for Dallin Holker, just based on where he's from, his size, both from the same area of the country, kind of, the Utah area, Colorado, that the whole Mountain West region. Dalton Kincaid, who was the stud tight end, 1st round pick from the Bills this past year, because he's a little bit leaner. He's 6'5", but he's only 235. So he could. I think he could put on a little weight. Maybe I know Evan Ingram from the Jags is only 240. So I think he'd need to bulk up, maybe add another 10, 15 pounds when he gets to the pros. But he runs a 4.62 40. So I mean, he's got some giddy up. He's a little faster than Kincaid. Got good hands. Blocking is kind of his weakness, but I mean, do you really need that in today's NFL? I mean, Antonio Gates is a finalist for the Hall of Fame. How much blocking did Antonio Gates do in his career? You know what I mean? Antonio Gates was an animal with the Chargers, probably going to go in the Hall of Fame. Didn't do any blocking. So he's going to be a receiving tight end, I would assume. And like I said, Seattle will be a good spot. Chicago too. Team him up with Cole Kmet. I think he's a complimentary tight end. I don't think he's exactly Kincaid. I was just going off size and 40 times and similar college numbers too. But I think he's going to be more of a complimentary guy, like what Isaiah Likely is to Mark Andrews, as a really good backup or as like a number 2 with like like I was mentioning Cole Kmet, Noah Fant, somebody like that. And then so far his stats, I'd mentioned earlier, he has 64 grabs, 767 yards, 6 TDs, and he had that big game against Colorado, 109 yards, 6 grabs, 2 touchdowns. So I mean, Colorado ended up being 4-8. We all know they kind of fell apart, and their defense wasn't the greatest. But that was probably his best opponent performances against whoever the hell, Texas, Alabama, Georgia. The bigger schools, and they're from a small. And Colorado State, it's obviously in a smaller conference. They don't get a lot of opportunities to play the Power Five. What are your thoughts on old Dallin Holker? Oh yeah, and I was going to mention too, quick, Jake. He's only a junior, so he's 23 years old. He's a junior because he missed 2 years because he was on a mission. So he's his Mormon is his faith, I guess. And so in 2018 he was with BYU, and then he went on a Mormon mission for 2019 and 2020. Came back for his sophomore year in 2021. So he played a full year. And last year, he only played 3 games. That's why his stats there, it's only 9 grabs, 86 yards, and a tutty, because he only played 3 games. And then he ended up transferring in the transfer portal over to Colorado State for this year. So technically, he's only a junior, which is crazy. I mean, his first year in college was 2018. This is like a Bo Nix situation. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I will pop up this here in just a second here. Here we go. Oh, um, yeah. Well,
There we go.
it's crazy. It's crazy enough to actually say here. I didn't really know anything about. You know, I think I messed up his name there, Mister Dallin Hooker. Should be an I instead of an N there. So as you can tell, my spelling of English is terribly, horribly bad. But oh well.
He'll
That's
always
my
be a
two.
hook. He'll always be a hooker to me.
That's my specialty. Um, anyways, yeah, he actually, I was actually kind of digging. I was actually trying to find some highlights of him. Very slim to zero highlights of him. Only highlights of him are the Colorado State game, the Colorado game. Sorry, my bad. The Colorado game, and then he actually had a nice catch from Boise State, where his actually notable highlights throughout this season. But he's actually got 64 receptions, 767 yards, and 6 touchdowns on the season. So out of all the tight ends in college, he actually ranks first in receptions, first in yards, and fifth in touchdowns. I mean, he's actually a little bit better than Brock Bowers in fantasy. I was actually looking and digging into some fantasy stuff here, but it with him, and it sounds like I'm like, damn, dude. I'm like, him actually being a little bit better than Brock Bowers from Georgia. I'm like, there's got to be no goddamn way that he actually had better
Well,
yards than Brock Bauer. But
Well, no, but Brock was hurt though. I will give him. I mean,
oh,
Brock
oh,
Bowers
oh,
is a top 10 draft pick. I mean, all work. But yeah, no, no, I get your point about him. Just accumulating the points. Like holy, because Brock Bowers is like the best, tight end prospect. He's probably better than Kyle Pitts was coming out of Florida 2 years ago, just in terms of a prospect. So Brock
yeah,
Bowers is like a can't miss top 10 guy, and the fact that Holker is outproduced him is yeah, I get your point. It's crazy.
yeah, it is. I mean, with us looking him as a dynasty player. I mean, he put up like 182 points, which is not a lot for tight ends. Because I mean, if you think about the tight end atmosphere and us trying to dig for any and all kinds of tight ends in fantasy football, it's skim pickings. I mean, you're not going to find you're not going to find that Kyle Pitts in college fantasy football. I mean, unless it's a Brock Bauer, that he probably would have had a lot more than what if he wasn't injured, more than likely. But it's funny enough to say that the Rams actually were putting up about 300, almost nearly 400 yards per game, which is crazy. And I was actually in the total in the Mountain West. They're actually sixth best in overall yards with 46 or 4,700 92 yards overall. So I'm just like, and with them being this bad, I was just like, they actually sounded like they were pretty decent, but um the other part of it with you saying that he like with his college offers, he was offered by Utah State, BYU, the Beavers, Hawaii, and Colorado State were all guys that were interested in his services, you know. But he ends up signing with BYU, which is he was there for about 3 years. There was a 1 year that you mentioned that he was gone. I figured he maybe got injured or something like that. And then in 2022, he hits that transfer portal, ends up signing with the Rams here. Um, so he played 3 seasons with BYU, 1 season with the Rams this year. So I thought maybe he got injured, but in the mountain in just statistically in the Mountain West, he actually receiving yards, we mentioned, which is up here on the screen here. He's actually eighth best overall, sixth best for his receptions, eighth best overall in touchdowns, and then his yak yards was actually about 12 catch, about average of 12 yards per catch, which was 20th best overall. Which is crazy enough to think about. The Mount West actually had four receivers with 1,000 yards in their conference this year, and I believe Horton was actually one of them from Colorado State, which will more likely be entering the draft with Dallin Holker this year. Just some overall other things here, quick too. The Rams overall, their scoring was actually 70. They were 73rd best for scoring about 24 points per game. Passing 17th best, about 288. Then the rushing was actually not the best, so which is probably why you could see why he was a little bit more involved in the passing game, because they actually ranked 123rd. So I mean, putting up about 80 some odd yards per game, which is probably more, which is why he was actually involved a lot more in the passing offenses of the Rams. Far as draft buzz, they actually have him fifth round. About tight end numbers, position rank seventh, overall rank 153rd overall. He's actually played 41 college games. He actually has had 1,608 snaps overall in his whole career in general. Um, the other crazy thing is that he's actually a finalist with Brock Bowers for the John Mackey Award. Um, that's actually, I think, December something
Yeah,
for a lot of those awards coming
top
out.
tight end. Yep.
Uh, yeah, and then we have then his most notable. Um,
He should win. He should win, dude. Guy's had a monster year.
yeah,
I'm
I mean
yeah,
that, that is,
I'm Pope. I mean, but if Bowers was, I know it wasn't Bowers' fault, it wasn't Brock's fault, but I think this. I mean, if this kid's lead, top six in all these different statistical categories, and what he's done. I mean, the guy was on a mission for 2 years, kind of like remember Taysom Hill. All
yeah.
those years, that's why he's so old when he got started in the NFL because of missionary stuff. I respect that, So yeah, I'm pulling for him to win that Mackey Award.
Yeah, and I just mentioned briefly earlier before. I mean, he had that Hail Mary catch versus Boise State there at the end, and then he had that nice couple touchdowns there, against Colorado. I was actually kind of watching that game too, and I probably overplaced Holker when he had a couple touchdowns. I mean, I just know that game was back and forth, and it was actually like literally coming down to the end, and I think they only beat him by like a point or two or whatever it was. So, I mean, it was a high scoring game. It was like 47-45 or something like that. Um, just couple other notable notes on him. He was actually a national high jumper champion. So this actually kind of helps him actually in the passing game. With some of his contested catches, bringing some
Yeah.
athleticism to the passing game. And then and that should work well for some short intermediate tosses. If for little dump offs for the quarterback if needed to, kind of that safety blanket if it does come down to it. I know you said he had some mention about you didn't think he had good blocking skills. I mean, I think he might have some good blocking skills, but I'm sure that's just tempered expectations there.
Average. I
But
mean,
with it,
average. good enough to play in the
Yeah.
NFL. Good
Yeah,
enough to
yeah,
play in
more
the
likely.
NFL, but not he's
Yeah.
not like all world, George Kittle, blocking or anything. But
Yeah. But with his, with his athleticism, I think he should be, and I think that would come good in hand when it comes to like him being a red zone threat, just needing a target or something like that. So I mean that might be good for a quarterback when they get down to the red zone. Um, just a couple cons, not he's not really a deep, not really a deep threat tight end kind of guy. And he's got a little bit of a hard time tracking the ball over his shoulders. I mean, him kind of being a kind of a Brewster, pretty hard for somebody to kind of look over their back. So it's got a more likely. I think he's got to have more of those on the run catches. Right when he cuts, the ball's got to be there for him to visualize the ball there as well. Um, but yeah, that's kind of my overview with you know Dallin Holker from Colorado State Rams. Anything else to kind of wrap up the segment before we
I
wrap
think
it
he's
up?
gonna be a yeah. No, I like I said, I think he'll be a good complimentary tight end to. I use like Seattle because Seattle they don't really have a number one, so a place like that where it's like there's a 1A or there's a like obviously Kansas City, Kelsey, clear cut, Minnesota, Hawkinson, clear cut number one, San Francisco, clear cut number one. I know they took that the kid from Alabama in the third round, the 49ers did, but someplace like that, either being like a really good tight end's backup or being in a two tight end, where he's like a Noah Fant. I could see him day one being, the just as good as Noah Fant, being like a compliment to a guy like that, and or being, like a Kelsey, like he'd actually might make a good fit in Kansas City as being like a young guy that they groomed to take maybe, the kind of backup Kelsey.
Yeah,
He'd
yeah,
be
yeah,
cheap labor, and I know they have Seattle and Chicago as places, but yeah, I think Kansas City, as Kelsey's backup. Kelsey's gonna be 35 years old to start the next season. They're gonna need young, cheap labor coming in.
yeah. They will be for sure. Yeah, I mean, Seattle not a bad, with Dilsey and Noah Fant. I mean, that's not a bad option there. Depends on if Gino's still there, if they get, if they do to go a different direction, him making reports with, the next, the
Yeah,
second string quarterback and stuff
yeah.
like that. So, I mean, yeah, I'm sure. I mean, he'll probably have some fits somewhere. But yeah, I think that kind of covers our Dallin Holker from the Colorado State Rams, and yeah, we'll be right back, and then we're gonna actually wrap up our show and get the heck up out of here. So we'll be right back in like 15 seconds.